Hello, this is Kenny Williamson, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. As always, of course, I'm your host, Kenny Williamson, the founder of the show, if you will. So I've been kind of slow here recently getting some podcasts out, it seems like. Only because I'm busy at work. Got sick again with some kind of a head cold, and can't hardly breathe. I'm almost over it now. But that combined with the gripping heat over here, it's high 90s every day, feels like in the hundreds, very high humidity. So it's hard to do anything outside without just dying of a heat stroke, more or less. So, of course, most of my work that I do professionally, for a living is outside. So by the time that I go to work and work during the day and, sweat all day long and just about fall over from a heat stroke, by the time I get home, I'm just too tired to do anything, seems like. But I have to keep pressing on. We need to get the truth out there. That's what this thing's all about, this is a truth seekers ministry. The whole idea behind this thing is to, get people to think about things other than what they see on Hollywood movies, other than what they see on the fake news. And, this Trump thing, that happened whatever. We've got Trump as a president. He started coining the news fake news, but I called them fake news way before he ever called it fake news. Okay, they've been fake. Okay, all they are liars, and propagandists. Okay, that's all they do is they parrot whatever they're told to say from higher up. Okay, there's no such thing as a journalist anymore. Those things are gone. All these people you see on Channel 5 News, Channel 6, Channel 8, whatever channel it is in your area where you're listening to this, they're all fake. They're all parrots. They don't come up with anything. They don't investigate anything, obviously, because they all say the same thing. And I've seen video after video where, they literally say the same lines even. So everything's parroted, everything is scripted, everything is fake. So just keep that in mind. This is a giant propaganda machine that's running continuously. Okay, so the stuff that I talk about goes against everything you're going to hear on TV. It goes against pretty much everything you're going to hear on the radio. Now, I'm a listener of a couple of different Christian radio stations that I drive around when I'm driving around for work. I listen to those stations. And, when it comes to God and it comes to the Bible, I'm not going to say they're 100% correct. They say a lot of weird things, but they're 90%. I believe the majority of them that are on there are probably saved. It's hard to tell on some of them. But as far as anything else, when it comes to the truth, they don't know nothing. They are as dumb as a box of rocks when it comes to anything that you actually have to think about. Okay? What they are is, other than a few things in the Bible, and this, I never have understood this, but other than a couple things in the Bible that they believe, which makes them a Christian, okay? Yeah. When it comes to anything else, as far as discernment, they have none. Zero. Nothing. Zip. So, I don't know how they believe anything in the Bible, honestly, but, and, when it comes to Christ, they supposedly believe in Christ. That's what they claim. They supposedly believe in that kind of stuff. But then, they start talking about, anything else. Let's talk about, airplanes hitting buildings in New York many years ago. There were no airplanes. It's all CGI. It's all fake. It's all holograms in the sky, if anybody even really saw anything. So there's no planes. There's no terrorists. It's all fake. But these guys, they talk as if it really happened. They say, even though there's videos now proving, for example, like the Pentagon, there's a video proving there's no plane that hit the Pentagon. Okay, they've got a video from the parking lot. Obviously, somebody shot a missile into there. Okay, there's no plane. There's no pieces of planes. There's no luggage. There's no shoes. There's no nothing. The only thing that ever survives any of these things is the terrorists' identification, their visa, their passport. That's the only thing that's fireproof, flame-proof, non-destroyable. They always find it. That way they know who did it, you see? They find the ID laying right there. The whole rest of the plane disintegrated. All the people disintegrated. All the luggage disintegrated. Not so much as a single tennis shoe. Nothing. Zero. Just ash. Except for the passports. Okay, that's what you hear. That's what you get taught on TV. That's a Hollywood production. Okay, that's perpetuated as real news, and people still talk about it like it's real. They talk about these big school shootings that happened a while back as if it was real. Now you can go see all the students that supposedly died. They're having reunions, and they're alive and well. Nobody was killed. And then you see the teachers, they're in multiple shootings. They've got the same ones over and over and over. They've got the same parents in all kinds of stuff. It's fake. Okay? It's big, giant false flag operations being ran all around you all the time for propaganda and fear-mongering. So, as I was trying to get to the point of, most of these so-called Christians that you hear on the radio, you read in these magazines like I read here, and these different books that I'm going to talk about here in a second, they're oblivious to anything. They know nothing. So either, I guess they're saved, they just have no discernment. I guess they don't need it. I guess. I just don't know. But I'm just not wired that way. I want to know the truth. I believe that the truth sets you free. Okay, so I want to know what really happened. And when I can see that they're lying to me, I know they're lying. Now, there's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is pray. But I don't want to be one of the ignorant ones that just believes every little thing that comes down the pike. That's what 99% of everybody does. They just believe it. They don't question it. So either their gland up here is calcified from all the fluoride they've been drinking. I don't know. But, and then if you mention the truth to them, they don't want to hear it. They won't look into it. They don't want to hear it. And so we've got stuff, that has to do with, 9/11, just on and on and on. The list goes way deeper and darker than that. But a lot of the stuff I can't even talk about because they'll immediately get banned. I interviewed the guy from Conspiracy Music Guru, and they've banned him on different platforms just because of the songs, because of the lyrics. He talks about Building 7. You don't talk about that kind of stuff, which is a World Trade Center building. You can't mention anything like that. You can't mention who these people and what they're doing, even in a song, because they just ban you. They don't want anybody to hear it. You have to go by their narrative. You have to go by Hollywood, Cartoon Network, NASA. Okay, that's the gods of the TV and the internet. Okay, that's them. YouTube, whoever's running this stuff. Okay, those are the gods, and people bow down and worship them. They really do. They believe every word they say, regardless of how ridiculous. They have no discernment at all. But anyway, so this is another thing I was going to talk about here. This has to do with cattle mutilations. Okay, now, when I was growing up, it started coming across the TV, cattle mutilations, black helicopters, picking up cows, and then it came to, well, it's UFOs doing it. Okay, it's aliens, and they need something from these cows. Well, many, many years ago when I was a child, a friend of mine, they had a cow that was mutilated, and it was apparently drained of blood and had some white crystalline powder around it, and it was missing all of its sex organs and missing, everything was cut off of it, in other words. And I tell a little bit about that story in my book, Demons Among Us, because I believe it to be demonic in nature, and always have. I don't believe there's any such thing as aliens from outer space, because there is no outer space. That's a fake Hollywood production. Another fear-mongering, all fake. None of it can be substantiated. The only way you can get any proof of any of that stuff is from NASA, a satanic organization who teaches you that there is no God. Okay? So, if you're willing to believe a liar and a devil, well, then I'm sure you could believe anything they say. But it's funny how all these organizations that love the devil and absolutely hate the name of Jesus Christ, in fact, they've banned the name Jesus Christ. You can't even speak it there or you're fired. That anybody would believe a word they say. But they do. They get on their television set and they believe every single word it says. Okay. Why, I don't know. I guess because it's propaganda. I mean, you've been in this propaganda machine for so long, you just believe everything that you hear on it. And a guy like me comes on here and says, hey, now, wait a second, they're lying to you. They don't want to hear that. That's stupid. I'm a ridiculous conspiracy theorist. Do you know how many times I have heard that growing up? See, even when I was a young kid, I never believed in the moon landing. Now, I didn't understand the whole flat earth thing because nobody ever told it to me. I had no idea. But I didn't believe that moon landing from day one. I knew it was fake. And then when they started coming out and saying they've got rovers on Mars and stuff, I didn't believe it either. I knew enough. I had enough discernment. This is before the internet. Okay, before you could do a little research and come to find out, all of their pictures on Mars looks exactly like Devon Island, only in a different color. So they're copy and pasting pictures right here on Earth and claiming it's Mars. And the rest of it's all fake CGI. So, but, before I even knew that stuff existed, I doubted it. I was like, they've got a remote control car on Mars, and they're driving it around. Sure they are. And now they've got a remote control helicopter. Think about that. Let that sink in for a second. A remote control helicopter that they are flying around on Mars. Now, there's not any atmosphere on Mars, but helicopters can fly in no atmosphere if you're NASA. You don't need air. You don't need an atmosphere. You've got magic. You've got the magic of billions of dollars, and so your helicopter can fly with no atmosphere. Now, here on Earth, no, not happening. Okay, you actually have laws of physics here on Earth that you have to abide by, or you'll get nothing done. But if you're NASA, oh boy, nothing applies. The laws of physics don't apply. The laws of thermodynamics don't apply. Common sense doesn't apply. Nothing applies. You can do anything you want. And everybody believes it. But I don't. Okay, I know that they're liars. And I'm sorry, Elon Musk is lying to you. Okay, now, does he know the truth? Yeah, I'm sure he does. So does that mean he's a bald-faced liar? Yeah, he is. all those people that are doing that stuff are liars. That's all it is to it. But anyway, back to cattle mutilations, okay? I mean, I could get on another side tangent and talk about flat earth, fake space, and all the liars and devils involved. Yeah, we could go on and on and on about it, but it boils down to it's just, it's liars. And I saw a deal the other day where somebody said, oh, well, do you realize how many people have to be in on it? Every ship captain, every pilot. No. Don't be a fool. 99% of everybody on this earth is in the dark, the same as you are. They heard about it from television. They heard about it from their school books. That's where they got their information. There is a very, very few people on this earth that actually know what's going on. Okay, and those people are very highly tied into the occult and Satan. They're probably directly worshiping Satan, and they're taking their orders from either Satan or a demon of some kind, a fallen angel. That's who gives them these ideas, and that's how they get this stuff done. And there's an agenda in mind to get everybody to turn away from God. I mean, that's all it is. There's a very few people that actually know the truth. Very few. And they can be working at NASA, okay, and they sit in front of their cubicle, and they run their little tests, and they do this stuff, and they're spoon-fed information that they think is real. Okay? They're not in on it. They're idiots. Okay? They have no clue. And they don't have any discernment, and they're not saved. So they're just sitting there eating it up. So again, whatever their God NASA says is the truth. So, again, cattle mutilation happened when I was a kid. Since that time, I've read and heard all about them. Well, I've been getting a magazine called Prophecy Watchers, and it was a gift from a listener. They gifted me a subscription to it. And, it's got some decent stuff in it. It's packed full of advertisements. It's basically a advertisement catalog, if you will. Very little about anything in there other than trying to sell you something. And so we've got all these doctors and professionals in this here writing in this here magazine, and they've got these articles. And a lot of their stuff is good stuff. Now, as soon as they get off of the Bible and get off flat earth and start making fun of people, based on what the Bible says, because they clearly don't read it themselves, that's when I have a problem. Okay, I've got a problem with you then. So I've called a couple of these guys out on some of their ridiculous statements. But this guy here is named L.A. Marzulli. He is in the Prophecy Watchers. He writes articles in there, and some of his articles are pretty good, and he has a book out, which a listener recommended to me, so I bought it. It's called Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and the End Times. And one of the rungs in here is cattle mutilations. So I thought it was pretty interesting, his take on it, and so I figured I would share that with you, because I'm sure you probably don't want to buy the book. But a lot of this is his. Well, you'll know what's his and what's mine, but he talks about the cattle mutilations, which is the same old sad story, Somebody finds the cow, it's got the eyes cut out, the nose, the tongue, part of the face, doesn't have any blood, sex organs have been removed usually, no footprints around, nothing around it. Some of the other animals won't even go around it, so it's weird, okay? And so I've always thought that one of the things it could be is if there was nuclear. Now I'm starting to think that this nuclear stuff is a lot of hogwash as well, a bunch of it, most of it probably, is that, they were testing these animals. So this is my theory, is that you've got these animals spread all over the United States of America, and they're just grazing in a field, right? Well, if you've been spraying chemicals or dumping stuff in the air, which we know they are through chemtrails, I mean, that's another one of those rabbit holes, another conspiracy. Okay, but you can see it above your head, so any fool can see it. And I grew up when there was no such thing. There was no such thing as chemtrails. So now the sky's loaded with them, and they claim it's just contrails. Okay, well, no, it's not. And every time they spray it thick over someplace, people start getting sick. Okay, and they don't. I came outside one day and looked up at those contrails, as they claim, and it was literally a checkerboard type. They literally they're going back and forth, in a crisscross, and the thing was squares, like a giant chessboard in the sky as far as the eye could see in every direction. That is not how these airplanes fly. They're purposely doing it. Okay, they do not fly them in crisscross patterns like that for any just normal reason. So they're doing it. So my theory is they're spraying this junk, and they're wanting to know who's getting what and how much you're getting. So what they do is they're like, well, I wonder how much of the poison was over there in Arkansas. Okay. Well, let's fly over and find some cows grazing and pick one in the middle of the night, abduct it, if you will, lift it up. Let's kill it, suck all its blood out. Anything that could be touching this poison or susceptible to the poison, like the lips, the tongue, and the sex organs, which are, I don't know, probably soak up poison. And, part of the digestive tract, it's always cut out too. Let's take all those organs and then dump the cow back down, of course. And then let's check that random animal and see what these chemical levels are in all of these soft tissues. And so to get an idea, we need a couple from Arkansas, we need a couple from Oklahoma, let's get a couple from Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. Let's just fly around and do this all the time. That way we can kind of see where we're at on the poisons or whatever's being blown out into the air. That was my theory. So it's a government deal. Now there's possibly other alternatives to it too, as far as fallen angels. And so I don't really know. So after reading this, I mean, this is a good possibility here too. And he's come to these conclusions here, and I'm going to read some of these to you. Basically, he says that cattle mutilations are deliberate. Whoever's doing it knows exactly what they're doing. I agree with that. These are not accidental. These are not animals. These are not coyotes. No, this is somebody doing it on purpose. Okay, why? Well, I don't know. You be the judge. Okay, so he says there's an agenda, a goal. There's a protocol that's been set in place for decades, because this has been going on for decades. We've got material taken from the animal, whether sex organs, eyes, udders, hearts, lungs, or other parts of the animal. It says the perpetrators who are doing this, they know exactly what they want, and they take it deliberately, and they take it with impunity. So in other words, there ain't nobody stopping them. They do whatever they want. Okay, nobody even looks into it, hardly. I mean, now the person that loses the animal, $1,000 cow or $2,000, whatever the thing's worth, they're just out. I mean, nobody cares. There's nobody doing anything. Okay. So here's the other thing that proves that it's not from a wild animal, okay, or predator, is the cuts on the animals are done with surgical precision. as if surgical instruments and a surgeon's skill are used. The animal is not torn apart, which would indicate a predator was involved during the killing. The cuts on the animal are deliberate, clean, and executed with great precision, almost like the animal was operated on at a veterinarian's office. Okay, so maybe they're doing that in the field. Maybe they're taking this thing up and doing it on a, some kind of surgical table, in a plane, in a helicopter, in some other type of weird ship. Not an alien ship from Mars, okay, but a ship. All right, so this is another curious thing. The animals are always drained of blood. So where's the blood at? There's never any blood around. Okay, it says this is a signature of literally every mutilation to date. No blood. Okay, so how is this accomplished? How is that a cow is drained of blood? Well, there's a guy who's a big, named Chuck Zwoski. He's big into cattle mutilations and wrote some books on it. And he believes that the animal is drained of blood after it's removed from the field, which immediately begs the question, how does the animal leave the field? Okay. There have been reports of lights in the sky, as well as witnesses who recount seeing a cow being lifted into the bottom of a UFO with a beam of light. Maybe. That seems kind of far out there, but anyway, let's see. So this guy believes that animals killed before any of this occurs, but we don't know that for sure. And then, what are they using the blood for? Well, he talks about that later, and that has to do with this devilish, demonic things that are happening to these animals. So again, there's no sign of struggle around the animal. It's almost like they're just lifted off the ground by an unseen force that renders them immobile. So there's where the beam of light comes into play. Possibly they're being paralyzed somehow. Nobody knows, of course. Okay, according to him, there's no sign of natural predators, and scavengers won't touch the carcass. So after this animal has been found, your regular old vultures and everything else stay away from it for some reason. So I'm not sure what would keep them away. I really don't know. But so it says, when law enforcement investigates, which does law enforcement investigate anything? I'm not anti-law enforcement by any means, but if you've ever watched CSI, okay, that's fake Hollywood propaganda. It's all theater. They can't really find a hair 5 miles away that's out of place and somehow trace it back to the killer and know that the killer, no, that is fake. Okay, they're lucky to know anything. They've got people committing crimes now that walk right up to the camera and nobody seems to be able to figure out who they are. Very seldom can anybody figure out anything. So you think they're going to find anything out in an investigation in a field in the middle of nowhere surrounded by cattle? No. Anyway, so law enforcement, when they do their investigation, they just say, oh, well, mountain lion must have got it, or a common predator. Even though there is no evidence to support any of this, in other words, there are no footprints around the animal, not one. Coyotes and vultures who will just eat about anything won't even touch the carcass. I don't remember on the one that I found out about when I was a child and put it in my book. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know if anything ate it or not. I really don't. So, and then we've got number 7 here. Whoever's doing this drops the carcass back in the rancher's or farmer's field. So this is very deliberate. And in my opinion, this act alone tells me that whoever is doing this conducts the grisly affair with complete impunity. they know nothing can stop them. So you're probably right about that. I mean, nobody's going to stop them. Nobody's even going to try. So, he thinks that this whole thing is about fear, which, because obviously you're going to be scared if your cows are getting mutilated. Let's see. So let me tell you what he actually thinks is going on here. You heard my theory. They're checking these things for poisons and all the kind of stuff that they're putting out in the water and the air. And so they're wanting a random test spread out all over the United States by taking random subjects and testing them. That's a theory. This theory here, he says, here's what I think's happening. Okay. First of all, the phenomenon is fear-based. Okay, so it's scary. Secondly, the animal is always drained of blood. It says, but did you know that bovine blood products can be used in human transfusions? Now, see, I didn't know that. It says, let that sink in for a minute. United States military programs have used and researched this for decades, including the Letterman Army Institute of Research, or LAIR. Probably LIAR, too. Liar. Which carried out investigations using artificial blood. Okay, so it says, thirdly, we know that there has been a breeding program that's been going on for decades. These other authors have talked about it, and there's numerous books on the subject, okay? So let's see here. So this is just one of the examples here. It says, in our film on the abduction phenomenon, Karen told of being taken from early childhood, and then when she was a young woman, being impregnated by them, so these things that got her, okay? In the 3rd month of her pregnancy, she was abducted again, and the fetus was taken from her. Well, what happened to the fetus that was taken from Karen, and what about the thousands of others? So this is where his theory comes in. He says the fetus cannot survive outside the womb. So I propose that the fallen ones, these are fallen angels, which are biblical, okay? The dragon's forces, so, these fallen angels work for Satan, the dragon. He says they use the material and blood of the animals to create an artificial womb. Maybe. Okay? It says, while this is speculation on my part, it's based on the many testimonies of the unfortunate people who have been taken aboard these craft and have seen rooms full of containers, something like jars with hybrids in them at different stages of development. So he believes that the cattle mutilation phenomenon is part of the ongoing breeding program, which is creating hybrid beings that will be used by the dragon in the last days. These are the days of Noah. Well, that's very interesting. So, anyway, now you've heard this guy's theory. You've heard my theory. Does anybody else have any theories other than aliens? I don't believe in aliens from outer space, so I don't think that's what it is. Now, this guy here thinks that, they're using these parts to set up wombs for these fetuses to raise hybrids. I don't know. As many people end up missing every year, and disappear, these kids and people all across the board. We've talked about before that these things that are alive, these hybrids or fallen angels or whatever they are, they possibly drink the blood, and of children and people, and that's where all these bodies have disappeared to. So we know people are disappearing left and right, and they never turn up. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's not happening, but I don't know why you'd go to the trouble to impregnate a woman, okay, come back later and abduct her and then take the baby out, and then take the baby and stick it in an artificial womb made from cow parts? I mean, maybe. I mean, but it seems more likely that you would just kidnap the girl, okay, when she's young, stick her in a cage and start raping her or whatever you're doing, and force her to keep having children until she dies. I mean, you've got the womb, you got the person, you've got it all right there. And it's not like hundreds of thousands of people have disappeared. Lots of little girls have disappeared. Okay, they've never been seen again. They're never found. Nobody knows what's happening to them. So it seems to me more logical that these creatures, which I do believe exist, and they probably have ships that look like spaceships. They're not from outer space. They're from here on Earth somewhere, probably from down in the earth or somewhere. I don't know where they're hiding, but they're somewhere. And they come out, they do their thing, and, they're clearly doing the cows, whatever they're doing to them. And why, I don't know. Maybe my theory is correct. Maybe it's not. I mean, if you have a theory on that, let me know. Put it down in the comments, send an email, whatever, but let us know what you think it is. Or if you have proof of anything, please share it. But so I think definitely this guy is on the right track as far as, there's definitely demoniacs, fallen angels, demons. Satan is involved in this stuff. I don't know why they would have to use cow parts to make wombs for these people. It just looks to me like they just abduct the people and, stick them in a cage and just, have them right there. If you're going to impregnate them, just let them lay there. And then 3 months later, take it out and put another one in and just keep using them up. I mean, that makes more logical sense to me, especially with all the people missing. Now, if there was nobody missing, it's like, well, who are these people? There's nobody missing. But when you have 300,000 people a year going missing, I mean, of course, we know they're eating part of them. We know they're drinking their blood. We know they're making adrenochrome out of them. So why not this too? If you're wanting to breed some kind of weird hybrid, you've already got somebody you've kidnapped, breed a few things through them and then drain their blood and eat them or whatever you're going to do with them. To me, that seems more logical than this guy's theory. But I don't know. I mean, the cattle mutilations to me seem weird anyway. I don't know why you would need anything off of a cow. I mean, you've got all the people you're abducting. Why not just use their parts? Why do we need cows' parts? So anyway, that's kind of why I always thought maybe they're just doing it as a test, to find out, like a random test, completely random. Because see, if they were to actually have their own cows and stick them in a field, that wouldn't really be a random test, because they're like, well, that's your cows and you fed them and they're in your field and you tested them and they didn't test for much. But you didn't test Joe Blow's cow over there and his cow over here and this cow. We need a couple cows from all over to know what's happening. See? The only reason I can figure they're taking cows is because there's more cows. All these farmers all over the United States of America have cows, and they're just walking around out there grazing. So whatever's falling from the sky, any chemicals or whatever, they're eating it because they're out there grazing in a field all day long. That's all they do. So maybe that's why. That's my theory. Okay, but I really don't know. And maybe they're using the parts for something. But I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know, the parts that are taken. And maybe the uterus of a cow is taken. I don't know. But, I mean, they're talking about their eyes and their tongues and their this and their that. I just don't know why you'd want all those cow parts, to breed hybrids with. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could have your own cows to do that. You wouldn't even need to steal them. You could just have a big government facility somewhere full of cows. Nobody had blink an eye at it. They say, oh, no, that's the government's cows out there. I don't know what they're doing with it. I guess they're making beef out of it. I don't know. Nobody would even know. So I don't know why you need to steal anybody's cows to do it. But anyway, I don't know. What do you think about that? We know it's happening, and people have seen it, and people have reported it, and there's lots of pictures of it. But why is it happening? Do you believe my theory of random tests, out the United States? Or do you think Mr. Marzulli here is correct with they're taking the parts and making wombs for abducted babies, and going to create a monster satanic race of hybrids that's going to eventually probably come for you and your children? Is that what it is? I don't know. You tell me. Leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, or send an email. And I want to let you guys know that I have 2 websites. Okay, and I've been in the process of getting them updated, and I'm finally got there. Okay, it's taking time. But it's flatbro.com. Of course, it kind of stays updated. Anytime I run across some really good videos that talks about flat earth, it's on there. So there's always new videos to go look at. Okay. Now, on the other one, which is truthseekersministry.org or kennywilliamson.com, it's easier maybe, I had a bunch of podcasts on there, so you could go and listen to the podcast. Well, I've got a few things on there. The problem is I switched podcast hosts here a while back, and I was using a company called Buzzsprout, and they cost, of course, and there's no video or anything. Well, I kind of wanted to go to some videos, which is what this is, but I still want the audio as well. So, who is it? Spotify, they offer free hosting. So instead of spending $20, $30 a month with, endlessly with Buzzsprout, I can do it free through Spotify. And, because I'm paying for the websites, paying for that, paying for all this stuff, it adds up. And I pay for it myself. And I make sure that it's free of charge to everybody. So there's no advertisements. So, there's nothing. So you don't have to have any special memberships to YouTube or anything else to listen to these with no advertisements, because I don't have any advertisements. I want it to be free. So obviously it costs, though. So anyway, that website was linked to all those different podcasts that were on Buzzsprout. Well, when I stopped paying Buzzsprout, they started deleting all the podcasts. Okay, so they've disappeared almost all, I'm sure. So what I had to do before I deleted or stopped paying, Buzzsprout, I had to transfer them all over to Spotify, which I did, and got them onto YouTube as well. So anyway, the website linked everything back to Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has deleted them, so none of the links are working. You can't find anything. It's basically a hunk of junk. So, but now what I'm doing is I'm linking these videos, which I'm linking them the ones on YouTube. So when you go to the actual website, you'll be able to see these current videos, which is the podcast. And so you can click on it, and of course you can watch it on YouTube, or if you wanted to, you can just go to Spotify and listen to audio only, or the video, or you can go to Apple Podcasts and listen to audio. They're on that. They're on Podbean. They're on just about every kind of platform you can imagine, audio only. So, of course, you can still get them there. So, anyway, so go check out the website if you haven't. truthseekersministry.org or kennywilliamson.com. And go check that out. See if you maybe, miss some videos, and you can see them on there. Just got a few of the first ones. Going to keep adding them. And, check it out. And, of course, you can also contact me through the contact form on there if you want. or you can just email me at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. You can do that as well. So anyway, check out those websites. If you have any questions, comments on this whole cattle mutilation thing, let me know. Let me know if you think it's real, you think it's fake, you know, who you think's doing it and why. Leave a comment. I love reading comments. I like doing podcasts over comments, so leave me a comment. Other than that, I've got a whole lot of more things I'm going to come out with, so just stay tuned. And thanks for listening. If you support the show, which a few people do, thanks for supporting the show. Until we meet again, God bless you.